Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Erica. It is launch day for block number 8 of our 2025 Sew With Me series. If you've missed any of my previous Sew With Me blocks, there is a playlist here on YouTube. You can click that and see all of the blocks that have released so far. I will have links below this video for our Sew With Me group on Facebook where everyone's sharing their progress, the free PDF download for today's pattern, and then also the blog post that has all the information that you need for the sew along. But let's go ahead and take a look at today's block. I think this might be my favorite block so far. I would love to see an entire quilt made out of this block. This one is really cute. There are a lot of flipped corners on it, as you can see on these little points here. So I do recommend that you use some Mary Ellen's Best Press or pre-starch your fabric for this block. So this one's really cute. Let's go ahead and dive right into today's tutorial. All right, let's do our recap. So here is block number 1. Here is our backing, pieced backing bow block. Here is block number 2, and we did those together. Here is block number 3, block number 4, block number 5, block number 6, and last block on our list here is block number 7. Okay, these are all the blocks we've made so far. Let's go ahead and get started with today's video. We'll be making block number 8. So here are all of our pieces cut up and ready to go. We're going to start off with the pieces that, in my opinion, take the most time. So we're going to start off with our G and D squares. And you're just going to take one G unit and one D square. You're going to draw a line from corner to corner on the wrong side of the D square. And then we're going to place that according to the directions in the pattern. There is a diagram because you're going to be making these going 2 different ways. So you're going to make 4 of them with the diagonal line going from bottom left to top right, and then you're going to make 4 with the diagonal line going from top left to bottom right. We're just going to sew right along this line, trim 1/4 of an inch away, and press open. The next thing we're going to do is trim these up to 1.5 by 2.5. And so I like to just use the piece that wasn't snowballed and use that as my lines, and then trim off any extra where I got a little crazy while I was sewing that corner onto my rectangle. We're going to repeat that going the opposite direction, and you're going to make 4 of each. So you're going to have 4 that are leaning up towards the right and 4 that are leaning down towards the right. So we're going to set these ones aside for right now. We're going to take 2 of our opposite units. We're going to be using our C and J squares. The C is going to go in the upper corner, the J is going to go in the lower corner, and then your pieces that we just made are going to go like this. We're just going to assemble them together and sew those together, and we're going to create 4 of these corner units. We just need to trim these up to 3.5 by 3.5. Here we have all of our corner units. So I'm just going to set these aside for now. And now we're going to work on our flying geese units. So we're going to need an I square and 4 F squares. You're going to want to draw a diagonal line from corner to corner on the wrong side of your F squares. And we're just going to take 2 of those and line them up on opposite corners of our I square. I am going to stick a pin in there just to hold everything in place. We're going to now take this to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew 1/4 inch away from that center line on both sides. We'll come back and cut it in half right along that drawn line. All right, here's what that looks like. Stitch line 1/4 of an inch. Now we're going to just trim that right along that line. And we're going to make 2 units that just look a little bit funky here, but when we press these back, they're still going to look crazy, just like that. Just going to set those seams, and then we're just going to press these back just like that. You should end up with 2 pieces that look something like this. We're going to add our remaining F squares to that free corner. I just like to pin them in place. Again, we're going to sew 1/4 of an inch on both sides of our drawn line. We'll come back and cut along that drawn line to reveal 4 flying geese units. I'm going to go ahead and just trim them right on our drawn line. All right, we have all our flying geese units. We need to trim these up, and I wanted to show you a little trick with the ruler because I don't have that exact same size ruler. So I'm going to use my larger one, and I'm taking my points on my ruler, and I've got my 2.5 inch line here and my 4.5 inch line here. So I just want to scoot that up so that those points are hitting that intersection. The other thing I want to look at is that my 1/4 inch line right here is right at the point of that fabric. So I'm going to just scoot that up and adjust down here so that I'm getting the most accurate. As you can see, I have plenty of wiggle room here, and then I can make my first 2 cuts. So we know that this point right here isn't going to get cut off because it's a 1/4 inch away. Then I can flip it over, and now I can use my 2.5 by 4.5 inch lines again. I've also got this diagonal line to help me out a little bit, and I can trim off the rest. So now we have a perfect flying geese unit for this block, even if our sewing was a little bit wonky. All right, now that our flying geese are all done, we are just going to take our E-rectangles and sew one to the bottom of each of our flying geese units. So you're going to make 4 units that look just like this. All right, and we have now all of our flying geese units. And one thing I wanted to mention is that I wasn't too concerned, even though I'm using a stripe. Whenever you're using a directional print and you make flying geese this way, you'll notice that you end up with them going in opposite directions, which is exactly what you want. So we actually have them all going vertically like this, or if we wanted them to be going horizontally, we could just turn this whole unit. So I just thought that was kind of a cool way when you're making flying geese this way. If you have a directional print, you'll actually get them all going the right way without even trying. Okay, so we've got these set aside, and you're also going to want to trim these down per the instructions in your pattern. The last thing we need to work on is our center unit. So we're going to take 1 K square and 4 H squares. We're going to draw a diagonal line from corner to corner on the wrong side of our H square. Now again, I've chosen directional print, so I'm not sure which way I want to draw my lines yet. I want to make sure all my houses are going up. So I'm going to go ahead and just fold these the way that they need to go so that my houses are vertical, and then pin them in place. So I happen to get lucky and draw the line on the right of this one. So we're going to go ahead and just do that. I like to sew opposite corners first, and it doesn't really matter which ones you sew. So since we did that one, we'll go ahead and do this bottom one. And again, just making sure my houses are going the right way. I can draw a line right there now if I want. I'm also just going to use the diagonal seam tape on my machine. So we're going to take this to our machine, and we're just going to sew directly on this line from corner to corner. We'll trim 1/4 inch away from our stitch line, press these open, and then add the remaining squares to the opposite corners. All right, and then we just need to do the same thing to add the remaining squares to the opposite corners. So again, I'm just folding these, and that way I know they're going to be going the right way when I sew. And I didn't fussy cut these corners, but if you have a really cute print that you want, you could definitely do that. All right, so now we're going to again take this to our machine and sew right on those diagonal lines. So I'm just going to trim this down now to 4.5 by 4.5. What you want to do when you're lining that up is just make sure that these points are 1/4 inch away from your cut line, and you should be good. So now we just need to assemble our block. So our houses are right side up. We can now lay out our flying geese units, and you can decide whether or not you want these stripes to go vertical or horizontal if you are using a directional print. And then we can lay out our corner squares. And these don't matter for me because I didn't use any directional fabric. Then we just need to sew rows 1, 2, and 3 together. All right, I've sewn my top, middle, and bottom rows together. Now I just need to sew those together. Now the pattern actually says to press all your seams open, which I recommend you doing. I did not do that, so I had to do a little creative pressing to try and get all of these seams to nest up. But if you press open, I think on this block that'll be a little bit better. So we can go ahead and take that, sew it, and then we can come back and we'll add this one. Okay, now we can take this to our machine and just sew right along both of these edges using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, here is our center block, all nice and pressed. I trimmed it down to 10.5 by 10.5, trying to make sure that my points stayed within that 1/4 inch range. This one's gonna get a little bit close, so when I sew, I might just dip out just slightly into my 1/4 inch, and then come back. Now we just need to add our B strips to the sides and our A strips to the top and bottom. Here is our finished block. The other nice thing about these blocks is with this border on them, if your block gets a little wonky on the inside when you go to trim it, it won't really matter because you're just trimming away background fabric. You don't have to worry about cutting off any points or anything. So I think that's really gonna help make this quilt look really good when we're all done. All right, so that's it for today's block. Okay, let's take a quick look at our stitching progress. This is for block number 8. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Again, here's all my flosses and my DMC selection. You guys have all seen that already. And then I'm stitching on 14 count antique white Aida it's the DMC Charles Craft. I think it's turning out really cute, and I do really love my color selections. I think this was a great colorway to go with. It's going to be really cute for the holidays when we're all done. And then of course you can see how it's all coming together on the cross stitch and what the quilt is sort of going to look like when it's all done, because it is a mimic of the quilt. Again, I wanted to mention, if you're new to cross stitch, the Sew With Me series is a great way to start as a beginner. These little pieces are so small, they're not intimidating, there's nothing hard about them at all, and so it's really easy if you stitch that outer border to just come in and then add these pieces into the spaces as we add the blocks. And I can stitch one of these in an evening, so I think if you're a beginner and you need to take a few nights, or even really you have the whole month to finish it, it's plenty of time, so it's not overwhelming, and it's a great way to get into cross stitch. So here's my progress for blocks 1 through 8. All right, everyone, that is it for block number 8. I hope you enjoyed this one. I think it turned out so cute. I really do want to go back and make a bunch of these and do an entire quilt out of this block, and maybe I will. And really any of the blocks, minus block number 2 that has those ribbons hanging down, would be really cute for a whole quilt layout. So I might have to go back and do that. But that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new. Don't forget to join our Sew With Me group on Facebook, where everyone's sharing their progress. If you have any comments or questions, make sure to leave those below and I will get back to you. I hope you're all enjoying this year's sew along. That's going to be it for today's video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss out on any upcoming fun. And I will see you next month for block number 9. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. There are links for the free PDF for today's video, and there will be links below. Don't forget to join our Facebook group on Sew With Me. I'm also, what else am I gonna do? Squares, I almost just cut that. On both sides of our drawn line. The other nice thing, oh, I got a little, I need to press that. Okay.